Making Pocahontas was so frustrating, its co-director started secretly working for another studio while he was still making the Disney movie. Pocahontas turns 30 years old this week, so here are some things I bet you never knew about it. The story behind Pocahontas starts in 1596 on the ancestral lands of the Powhatan people, known today as Virginia, with the birth of Matawaka, the daughter of the paramount chief. The girl would later go by the nickname Pocahontas. Pocahontas was around 10 years old when John Smith and the Jamestown colonists washed ashore. She did befriend them, but she did not have a romantic relationship with John Smith, who, by the way, was not a nice dude, according to the people who worked with him. Smith would later tell a story about how Pocahontas saved him from execution, though this tale has been disputed and may not be factual. John Smith ended up going back to England due to injury in late 1609. Due to tension between the colonists and Native American people, Pocahontas was captured and held for ransom by the colonists in 1613. While under captivity, she was encouraged to become a Christian and was baptized and given the name Rebecca. In 1614, in her late teens, she married tobacco planter John Rolfe, who claims in his writings to have truly loved her. Their union led to a temporary peace between the Jamestown colonists and Powhatan tribes. 2 years later, Pocahontas traveled to London with Rolfe, where she was paraded to the high society as an example of a civilized savage, which made her a celebrity across England. But in March 1617, she fell ill and died at the age of 21 in Kent. Her legend, of course, lived on, though over the next 400 years, her story would grow to become more fanciful and romanticized. Alright, let's flash forward to 1990. Disney animation director Mike Gabriel has just released The Rescuers Down Under, and he was looking for his next project when he came across a book about Pocahontas while visiting his relatives for Thanksgiving. He thought, yes, this could be it. So back at the office, he printed out an image of Tiger Lily from Disney's Peter Pan, and he wrote on it, Walt Disney's Pocahontas. And on the back, he scribbled a summary. Quote, an Indian princess who is torn between her father's wishes to destroy the English settlers and her wishes to help them. A girl caught between her father and her people and her love for the enemy. Gabriel presented this one sheet to Disney executives and they loved it. Pocahontas then became the fastest story turnaround in studio history. It seems Pocahontas at first was going to be a little bit more kid-friendly and would have potentially featured talking animals. John Candy was going to voice a wisecracking turkey, while Richard E. Grant was going to play Percy the dog. But because Beauty and the Beast had been nominated for Best Picture, studio chairman Jeffrey Katzenberg wanted another romantic epic, and so he pushed to make the movie more mature and he cut the talking animals. Head of story Tom Saito said, some of the folks were so concerned about political correctness. They didn't want to be cuckoo wacky about it. So then in June 1992, prior to writing and production, director Mike Gabriel and his co-director Eric Goldberg went on a research trip to Virginia. They visited the Jamestown settlement site and the Pamunkey Indian Reservation. They spoke to historians at Old Dominion University, and they met Pocahontas' descendants Shirley Little Dove Costello McGowan and Debbie White Dove Costello. Shirley would later become a paid consultant on the movie, but due to its inaccuracies, she eventually said she wished her name wasn't on it. The filmmakers also consulted with other Native American people on the clothing and war dance choreography in the film. Meanwhile, that very same month, Jeffrey Katzenberg held an all-hands meeting with Disney Animation staff. He predicted that Pocahontas would be a big hit, and he said The Lion King, which was also going into production at the same time, was more experimental and less commercially viable. So as a result, most of the Disney animators chose to work on Pocahontas. In January 1993, the studio brought on writers Carl Binder, Susanna Grant, and Philip Lezebnik, while story supervisor Tom Saito became an unofficial historical consultant. He did extensive research into Jamestown, John Smith, and Pocahontas. And they all soon realized that Pocahontas was a preteen when she met Smith, and that the real Smith was a jerk. So they decided to take some dramatic liberties with the story. Most importantly, they had to age up Pocahontas. As animator Glenn Keane explained, we had the choice of being historically accurate or socially responsible, so we chose the socially responsible side. In one early version of the script, Pocahontas' dead mother was embodied by a star in the sky, but when they found out that The Lion King was using a very similar device, they scrapped it. Disney CEO Michael Eisner wanted Pocahontas to have a mother in the film, because Disney was always getting fried for having no mothers. But the writers argued that in real life, the Powhatan people were polygamous, and Pocahontas might have never known her mother. Ultimately, Pocahontas' mom was represented by the swirling wind. The villain, John Ratcliffe, was a real person, but his characterization in the film is an amalgamation of several colonial leaders. The filmmakers knew they needed some kind of spiritual ancestor in the film, so they originally conceived of a character called Old Man River with Gregory Peck in mind, but Peck thought the character should be a woman, and so he turned it down. Then they came up with Grandmother Willow, though Jeffrey Katzenberg wasn't fully convinced by this character until the animators threw some tree puns at him, and that convinced him. Frequent Disney songwriter Alan Menken returned for Pocahontas. Unfortunately, his lyricist partner Howard Ashman had died of HIV/AIDS in 1991, so Pippin songsmith Stephen Schwartz stepped in as lyricist. The two of them had some tension though, because both of them had experience writing music and lyrics. Schwartz would go on to play a key part in shaping the story with the screenwriters. He did a lot of his own research into Jamestown, Native American music, and English sea shanties. The Colors of the Wind lyric Blue Corn Moon is not a real thing. Schwartz made it up. Menken and Schwartz had to fight for just around the river bend, as the higher-ups didn't like it at first. Disney then specifically looked for indigenous actors to voice the Native American roles. Alaska native Irene Bedard, who has Inupiaq heritage, was cast as the speaking voice of Pocahontas, while Broadway star Judy Kuhn did the singing. Kuhn is not Native American. Mel Gibson took the role of John Smith because he wanted to be in something for his kids. He did his own singing in the film, which was rare for Disney at the time. Richard White, who voiced Gaston in Beauty and the Beast, was originally considered for Ratcliffe, but then they didn't want the character to sound too much like Gaston, so it went to David Ogden Stiers, who beat out Robbie Coltrane for the role. Stiers voiced Ratcliffe's assistant Wiggins as well. The movie also includes Christian Bale as Thomas and Billy Connolly as Ben. Christian Bale and Irene Bedard would later act in another Pocahontas movie together, Terrence Malick's 2005 film The New World, where Bale played John Rolfe and Bedard played Pocahontas' mother, who I guess existed after all. For the design of Pocahontas, Jeffrey Katzenberg encouraged animator Glenn Keane to draw, quote, the most idealized and finest woman ever made. So he based his design off her descendants, Shirley and Debbie, plus Naomi Campbell, Kate Moss, Christy Turlington, Dinah Taylor, and voice actress Irene Bedard. Dinah Taylor specifically sat for a number of 3-hour modeling sessions for the animators. Keane also looked at portraits of Pocahontas from the 1600s, but admitted that she wasn't conventionally attractive by 1990 standards, so, quote, I made a few adjustments to add an Asian feeling to her face. 55 animators total worked on the animation of the Pocahontas character. Errol Flynn and Mel Gibson himself inspired the look of John Smith. Ratcliffe at first was more pear-shaped, but to make him seem more powerful and confident, they moved the majority of his body mass to his chest. Grandmother Willow's face was hand-drawn, but her trunk and bark were done digitally. There was a lot of executive interference during production, which really frustrated co-director Eric Goldberg. He reportedly got so fed up that he started moonlighting for Chuck Jones Productions while Pocahontas was still in production, using the pseudonym Claude Rains. The filmmakers ended up cutting a love song between Pocahontas and John Smith called If I Never Knew You, because it bored younger audience members during test screenings. At the end of production, Disney had invested $55 million into the movie's budget. The mouse then doubled down with Pocahontas' big marketing campaign. The Lion King had found great success by releasing Circle of Life as its first trailer, so Pocahontas did the same. Its first trailer was the entirety of Colors of the Wind. Disney also launched an 18-week nationwide mall tour for the movie. This fully interactive experience included a walk-through maze and a studio workshop where you could voice a character. Burger King distributed 55 million Pocahontas toys. Disneyland staged a live show based on the movie concurrent with its release. And then the studio premiered the film in Central Park on June 10th, 1995. An estimated 100,000 people showed up to watch the movie. And then Pocahontas opened wide on 2,596 screens June 23rd, 1995, grossing $29.5 million opening weekend domestic. It would then go on to gross $346 million total worldwide, which is more than 6 times its budget. Michael Eisner called this a success, but for context, The Lion King grossed $771 million the year prior. So I guess Jeffrey Katzenberg was wrong about those two movies. The Pocahontas soundtrack peaked at number 1 on the Billboard 200 album charts and subsequently went triple platinum. The movie would gross an additional $250 million in its first 3 years on home video. Critics were mixed on Pocahontas, snapping Disney's hot streak. Today, 58% of the 115 reviews assessed by Rotten Tomatoes are positive. Some Native American leaders spoke out against the film. Chief Roy Crazy Horse Johnston of the Powhatan Lenape Nation said the movie distorts history beyond recognition and perpetuates a dishonest and self-serving myth at the expense of the Powhatan Nation. Professor and director of Indigenous Nation Studies Cornell Powawardi wrote in the 2010s that the movie presented negative stereotypes of Native American people. Though not everyone agreed with those assessments, Native American activist Russell Means, who played the chief in the film, said Pocahontas is the first time Eurocentric male society has admitted its historical deceit, and it makes the stunning admission that colonialism's purpose was to kill Indians and pillage the land. Pocahontas was nominated for and won 2 Oscars, Best Original Musical or Comedy Score and Best Original Song for Colors of the Wind, which also won a Grammy. Pocahontas spawned a video game in 1996, and it got a direct-to-video sequel, Pocahontas 2: Journey to a New World, in 1998. Pocahontas characters showed up in the TV series House of Mouse, and Bedard reprised her role in Ralph Breaks the Internet alongside all the other Disney princesses. Atlantic writer Sophie Gilbert also said that the character's influence can be seen in future Disney heroines like Mulan, Rapunzel, Merida, Elsa, and Moana. But in 2023, the New York Times reported that Disney has downplayed the film in recent years due to its subject matter, controversies, and inaccuracies. The paper reported that Disney is not planning to do a live-action remake of Pocahontas anytime soon. And if you've made it to the end of this video, drop a blue corn moon in the comments. Thanks for watching this deep dive. If you want more like this, join my Substack.